What's up, guys? I'm Kramer, and welcome to the Adobe Booth. And I love movies. Who loves movies? Yes. This guy loves them a lot, which is great. Now, anybody here do visual effects, work on movies, work on graphics? People here? Is anybody related to somebody who works on graphics and things like that? Good. Keep those people at home. Now, here's the thing. Working on movies, I've been doing visual effects for about 15 years, and it's a lot of work, but it's something that I really love doing. And the time you spend doing just the most simple thing that just takes you days, and the experimentation that goes with it, it's just, you have to love it. And it was all I cared about. It was all I ever wanted to do. And more recently, some information. I'm going to be celebrating my 10-year wedding anniversary in May, believe it or not. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's a couple months away, but we should be good. Now, the other thing that happened is this. Last year, okay, these aren't stock photos, okay? Although this one right here, this is our, okay, walk like you guys are in a stock photo library. We're like, okay, you got it down. And just real quick, if you guys haven't heard Adobe stock, I thought I'd try to make a little extra money. Just don't tell my wife. She doesn't need to know. She doesn't need to know. All right. Transitioning back, okay. What is important, okay? Well, this happened. And, it was something that happened. I realized, maybe there's other things that are more important, and things, like to be able to play with my son. This is Jason, by the way. And I thought, you know what? Maybe this is the most important thing in life. And then I got a chance to work on Star Wars. All right. Let's just move on, because there's nothing else to say. Okay, this is just going to be a lot of fun. All right. So, like many of you guys, Star Wars was definitely my movie I would watch. It was a VHS, and just to be able, I didn't know what a visual effect was. I just thought, wow, what an amazing movie. What a fun, exciting movie. And and then there was Jurassic Park and Forrest Gump and just countless movies that there was something different about them. The ones that were done right, they took you someplace else. And it was exactly what I wanted to do when I grew up. And one of the things, like, we've got a tutorial on my company's website, via Copilot, and we showed how to do some lightsabers. So like, it's sort of been around since the beginning. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to the first thing you ever did maybe was a lightsaber video. In fact, I remember it was a lightsaber video I did in Photoshop, because I didn't even know After Effects existed, and I didn't know how to use Photoshop, but I could draw a line in Photoshop. So somehow I managed to get a video into Photoshop frame by frame, okay, and then I'm painting it out, okay, like pages of this stuff. You're looking, like, the scale is like 0.0005 or something. The frame is, anyway, that's why I don't use Photoshop anymore, right? That's the point, okay? It's just too haunting. Now I use After Effects, right? It's more important. Oh, sorry, no Photoshop guys, it's fine. Okay. So, this brings me to today, right? I got a chance to work on Star Wars, and I gotta tell you, I'm still, I'm still very excited by it, and to be part of it, to have the challenge of it, not even feeling like, I don't know if I want to hit it, it's too sacred, right? But, if somebody's got to do it. All right, so, today, we're going to be talking about some of the work, some of the challenges, and some of the things that we learned along the way of doing the holograms and graphics inside of Star Wars: The Force Awakens. So, let's get started. Let's get this PowerPoint out of here. How do you get out of this thing? All right. Sorry about that. All right, so let's start by taking a look at a video of some of the work that we actually did. So let's just play it. Here we go. Thank you guys, and a quick shout out, okay, because I got a chance to work with a really awesome team of guys, and you know, the crazy hours, you know, it's always good to be working with people with a great sense of humor, and a love for Star Wars that is, well, a little uncomfortable at times. I mean, it was great. It was all great. So anyway, shout out to those guys who, you know, helped in all different ways. So, what's the first thing that you do when you're going to be working on a Star Wars film? Well, you want to go back to the original films and look at the language. You know, in a way, Star Wars was almost like a period movie because the look was so distinct and the design, like how would we be able to capture that in a modern movie and still try to keep that aesthetic and get that right so you felt like, I don't know about you guys, but watching the movie, like, all of this, it just felt like a Star Wars movie, like from the sets to just the characters, and there was just something about that alone made those movies just that much more enjoyable. So we just cut together, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what it goes into researching a project. We're going to watch the entire Star Wars A New Hope. No. We're just going to watch a little snippet to refresh your memory and take a look at some of the things. You're going to be blown away. This stuff still holds up, so let's take a look. And this is from the original. I mean, we can clap for Star Wars. I'm okay with that. Not for me. I'm just up here. All right. So you guys saw a lot of pretty amazing, impressive stuff that still holds up. So we were using that as like a guideline for it. Does this feel like it, or what kind of visual language can we take from it? I mean, borrow from it. Look at this. You guys remember this? Back when screen graphics were actually shot on the day. You didn't have to like green screen it out and put the reflection back in, and then you had to track, and then you had to get the markers, and you had to paint the markers out, and there was markers in the reflections, and then there was a lot of work. Those were the good old days. But I'm not complaining but like, look at this, like the reflection on the inside. It's amazing. Let's watch it again. No, okay. So what is the aesthetic? Like, how do you capture that? You know, like, how do you get the look of, you know, 1977 with the holograms and that kind of depleted look, that sort of analog, you know, like how could we do that today? Like, what kind of technology would we need in order to pull that off? Team of researchers were, and I'm not joking, right? You had to think about all the research. They had to go to like thrift stores, and one guy had to go back to his mom's house and like go into the garage. That was like a lot of stuff. All right, so let me open up a few programs here. We're going to talk about After Effects. hang on just a second. It's a new computer. Oh, is my drive plugged in? Hold on a second. All that Star Wars excitement, the drive got disconnected. Hang on a second. That's the sound we want to hear. All right, so guys, tell me something about yourself, so I don't have to look like I'm more listening. You know, that way. Okay, that's what we want. All right, so hang on a second. Okay, so scan lines, right? That's like a big part of the hologram look that we've all tried to create with various methods. And when you're doing 3D holograms, right? The movie's in stereo, you're flying around the cameras. How do you make sure that you can have a 3D scan line? Because a scan line just goes across the screen, but how do you create the dimension without it making it look two-dimensional? So as you saw here, we filmed some actual elements, and then we took those elements and we combined them together. So we have like a library of sort of VHS elements, and here's just a few different ones. So like here's kind of nice and slow, and it's just got some different interesting things that we would actually crop out little elements and then combine them together in like a particle system and then create randomness so that it wouldn't have the exact same feeling of VHS, but have that same sort of organic touch. Here's some other examples, and then this one is kind of the classic kind of slow scroll up. And this one was really useful. You know, another thing too is that VHS, the noise of VHS can be really like fast and uncomfortable. So we had to find ways to sort of stabilize the VHS and still yet keep that analog feel. And that's like this one. It's a really interesting kind of like composite. And when it's on a hologram, it doesn't feel so disruptive. It actually just has like a nice kind of wave that goes through it. So, all right. So one of the tools that we used was Element 3D along with Cinema 4D inside of After Effects. So our holograms were made up of actual 3D objects, but we needed a way to create a scan line effect that was actually three-dimensional. So we basically built a world space tool that would convert the model and be able to map it to a real map. And as I go above it, you can kind of see how this works. Now, it's not just mapping the scan lines, it's also mapping the VHS noise, basically. So if you look at it closely, you can kind of see that the lines of the VHS effect go through it. And we just spent a good amount of time just trying all sorts of different recipes, different ways to create the displacement, because this is actually just step one. And then what we would do is we would take this and we would export it and then use that as a displacement map so that you would actually get the frame with jitter and it would kind of have that more organic feel like the originals. Now, another important thing was the lighting beam. So you can see right here, the light source is projecting towards, let me see if I can brighten this up a bit. So for all of BB-8's and R2's holograms, we needed the beam to be complete and be an actual representation of the hologram. So you can see that this beam of light follows it, it starts and ends, and it matches all of the detail that happens. You can kind of see in the lines right here. And it was actually a lot trickier to do because if you've ever used an effect like a radial blur, it doesn't suck up into a point that can be mapped to another point. And instead, it kind of has like a soft fade out. And sometimes you'll see holograms where the lines go past the hologram instead of connecting exactly to the edge. So just using some expressions and some math, we were able to get it just right so that it fit right to the edge of the hologram. Now, this is kind of a cool example, but let's take a look at another. So here's another concept, okay? You've got holograms. How do we create interactive lighting for a hologram? Like it's one thing if you're doing like an action scene and you have a muzzle flash that just needs to go off for one frame. You're like, hey, I can do that. I can rotoscope for one frame. I'm really good at that. But what about a stable object that is going to reflect a hologram that's three-dimensional? Like how would you do that? So here's a setup that gives you an idea of one of the things that we did. So here's just a shot from the trailer, right? And let me see if I can brighten that up a bit. Is that right? I can't, I'm kind of at an angle. Is that okay? Can you see it okay? Okay. So BB-8's projecting a hologram, right? How do we get the light back on top of him? Well, it helps if you have a 3D model that matches him for the most part with textures. And the best thing about working on this movie, I'm going to tell you right now, is that there was a team dedicated to doing 3D tracking. Okay, that's all they did is they took the film, they said, I need a perfect track of BB-8's head, or of this. And they would send you back a file that was locked down, lens distortion, perfectly tracked to any object. You never had to worry about tracking. Those guys did a great job. And I need to get some of those guys, because, oh man. Because I think that's what I usually do. I'm like, I track something, it's okay. I keep working on the shot. And then finally when it's almost done, you're like, oh, this track is kind of slipping. And then you gotta go spend all this time going back and like trying to fix the track, and it's a mess. So what are we talking about? BB-8? Let's get to this. So, what if there was a way it's a good way to do this. Can I get a After Effects expert up here to help me? There we go. So, can you guys see this a bit? Now, I just have the head of BB-8 here. Now, what's happening is we're taking that model of BB-8's head and we're running it through Element 3D, and we have a special material called a reflection matte material. Have you guys ever heard of a matte shadow? It's a material in 3D. It basically refers to, let's say you have a live action shot and you need to cast a shadow of a 3D object onto the ground or onto a building. What you use is a matte shadow material, and it just receives the shadow and just makes it more realistic, integrates it a little bit better. So in Element 3D, you can do that with reflections. So when you have a model, now it's off, let me go ahead and just turn it on real quick. They have like a box under my computer so I don't have to lean down, but the box isn't big enough. So I'm gonna lean down, hang on a second. All right, so there's part of BB-8. And so it's just one little setting, matte reflection, you turn it on, and it just takes all of the reflections that are applied to that material and turns it into a matte. So you can even see that we're using a physically based shader system. So you actually have areas that are more reflective, like the glass is actually almost perfectly reflective. This area is a little bit diffuse and a little bit rough and grainy. And we use this so in the big scenes where the hologram's up and we wanted to be able to have realistic light on the objects, on the scenery, around different things. This was the way that we did it, and that way we didn't have to leave After Effects, create a whole pass in another program. We could do it at the compositing level, and that just made a huge difference. And obviously, not to plug Element 3D, but using it to be able to get real-time performance, it just made cranking out shots and getting versions of shots just that much faster. And Cinema 4D, we still like designed elements. We built elements in Cinema 4D. It was a really, really great workflow. Build the elements in Cinema 4D, set them up so that you can have different parts animate on or animate off, and then once inside of After Effects, you didn't have to leave, and you can work really, really fast. So it's very cool. All right, got one more example. Let's check the time. 45 minutes over. Okay, we gotta hurry. Or actually, hold on a second. Let me open this up in 2014 real quick. One time, look, I'm going to open it up in the version that I created it, all right? I'm not going to say anything else about it. That's what I'm going to do. For people who know what I'm saying, then that's it. All right, so here's a great example of what I'm talking about. So if I jump inside of this scene setup here, And by the way, we're bringing in Cinema 4D files natively in here, so there's no extra steps or anything like that. Hey, look at that, it opened. So that load, a lot of textures, 8K, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so here's how it's broken up. So you've got all these tags, right? You can see that they're all set to face the camera. So that, you have like a little tag, you don't want to have to worry about it rotating or getting in the way. We've got all these tags set. And the nice thing is we can actually go and we can go click on them and move them around. So again, this is another benefit to doing your 3D at the compositing level, is that you've got your shot, of Chewbacca, he's standing by the hologram, and there's a big tag in front of his face, and you just want to take that one tag, move it out of the way, or maybe there's an extra that got to be in Star Wars, and you're like, man, the hell with this guy, let's cover his face up with a hologram, with a little tag. I'm not saying we did that. I'm saying you could do that. All right, let's see what else we have here. This is being recorded. So I'm going to show you the breakdown of it. And so Starkiller Base has all these different levels, and when it animates on, we actually see the inside of it. And so you needed to really animate the parts that are on the outside and the parts that are on the inside, and the mats for the parts that you're going to see through. And so this is just one of them. You got just an insane amount of detail in each of all of the textures. In fact, this is an 8K texture with multiple 8K maps. So it was pretty massive. Here's another example of sort of the inside mechanism. What's the line from the movie? He says, it's like, is it a laser cannon? He says, we can't describe a weapon of this size. Something like that. Probably better. All right. One more. Here we go. You can see this is sort of like the inside area, but it also, you see that it's being matted out by an object. So we have an object that's set to be a mat, so that you can always get that perfect occlusion. Holograms, it's a crazy thing, because are they transparent? Are they translucent? But then how can it be a 3D object? Like, how can you see through it and simultaneously have surfaces that occlude other surfaces? So it's not something like, oh, we'll just have an outside, we'll just show the outside faces or just the inside faces. It's a constant struggle of finding out what helps it read better. How does it come across on screen? What if a hologram occludes another hologram? Do you see through the hologram? Yeah, you think about that one. Nobody knows. All right. So this was the majority of our workflow on Star Wars, and this was a really fun, really cool project. And one of our lead designers, Jace Hansen, and Varro Parker, and Ryan, these guys were just amazing. And building. You ever need an element? I need a tag that gets close to the camera, and it'd be really good if it was cool. And then somebody can focus their attention on making that one thing that cool. There's just something about having everybody who. The thing that we would always say is, man, I could really use a thing right here, but I know we got a million things to do. And then people would just say, yeah, just leave it. It's just Star Wars. And then somebody would be like, all right, I'll make it. And then, all right, guys. Let me just tell you a little bit about what I do with Video Copilot. Should I start with that? But just to talk about, what's a good way to get into creating and doing more things as whatever your skill level is. How do you grow into doing new things? And so, at Video Copilot, we try to think of different ways to encourage people, and I can show you just kind of a demo reel of just some of the different kinds of projects we work. Some of you guys have seen some of this stuff, but I'll just play it because it has music. tutorials at Video Copilot and show people stuff. We just came out with this thing. It's not associated with Disney. It's a plugin called Saber. Let me just show you this to give you an idea. This is a free plugin that we made. So here's what I would say to encourage you guys, because it reminds me of the time I used Photoshop. And I didn't know how to do anything, but I could do one thing, and that was draw a line. And everybody who has Creative Cloud, you have After Effects. And you may not think, oh, well, that's too complicated, or I don't know if I can do all of that stuff. Well, just find one thing. Find one thing that you can open the program up for. Maybe a title, maybe augmenting a design. Just find one thing, open it up, and it'll just expand your tool set, your skill set, and trust me, it's a lot of fun. So thank you guys very much. I'm Andrew Kramer. We'll see you next time.